Welcome to LevFin Insights podcast series, Levered Lines. I'm Luke Miller, Global Editor-in-Chief at LevFin Insights. I invite you to listen to our series of podcasts where we interview key market participants as we look across the main themes impacting the leveraged finance markets. And with that, over to the team.
Hello, and welcome to the Levered Lines podcast. I'm Krista Giovacco, Senior Editor at LevFin Insights. I'm joined today by Tim Kleiman of Golub Capital. Golub is not only a powerhouse in private credit, but also a leader when it comes to its philanthropic pursuits. Welcome, Tim. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Krista. Thanks for inviting me to speak today. Really happy to meet you.
Sure. Well, maybe as we get started, you can begin with a little background on yourself and Golub Capital. Private credit is a fast-growing category, so it may be good to give listeners some context on the company and what's unique about the firm.
Sure. So at Golub Capital, we're specialists. We specialize in lending to companies that are controlled by private equity sponsors. Our goal is to be the best in its niche. We manage over $85 billion of assets, and we're known for having a long track record of consistently low credit losses. We sometimes describe our business as good boring. And we try to be such a reliable, consistent partner that it's a little boring, but in a good way. And one reflection of our good boring ethos is that over the last 20 years, through multiple challenging periods, we haven't had a single bad fund vintage. I've been at Golub for about 15 years now. I'm currently a managing director in the office of the president. I've been very lucky to wear a bunch of different hats as the firm's grown over the years. And one of the hats I wear is chair of our responsibility committee. And this body oversees the firm's responsible investing and impact philanthropy programs.
Great. Well, today we're going to be zooming in on Golub Capital's philanthropy. So who better to speak to than you? How would you describe the firm's efforts in this area?
Sure. So let's zooming in on what I think is our most distinctive and ambitious philanthropic program, which is the Golub Capital Nonprofit Board Fellows Network. The network brings together 17 of the top 25 business schools in the United States. And if you or any of our listeners have ever worked with business schools, they don't tend to collaborate to this degree. And, why have we been able to galvanize this degree of collaboration? It's because we found that there were two principles underpinning Golub Capital's philanthropy program that turned out to be pretty widely shared among a number of the business schools we talked to. So what are those two principles? First is what I'd call a communitarian principle. We all have different beliefs, different backgrounds, different politics, but there's really a lot of values that almost all of us, maybe all of us, share. We want to live in rich, vibrant communities that take care of people when they're in need. We want to live in communities that have arts, music, theater. We want to live in communities that create opportunities for people to thrive. And nonprofits are really critical to achieving that vision. Second core principle is that leadership matters. There's over 1 million nonprofits in the United States. Most of them are small. Many of them don't have the resources they need to be as effective as they could be. And many of those resources that they need, time, money, bandwidth, talent, you can't just wave a magic wand and create those resources. But there is one resource you can create more of, and you can do this without taking away resources from somewhere else, and that's leadership, specifically board leadership. We believe good board members dramatically improve the effectiveness of nonprofits, and we believe business schools are uniquely well-placed to identify and develop the next generation of impactful board members. So these two principles are really at the core of what we're doing with the Golub Capital Nonprofit Board Fellows Network. And our vision is that this network of 17, hopefully more over time, business schools will train thousands and thousands of future nonprofit directors. And each of these highly skilled directors will have the potential to amplify the effectiveness of many nonprofit organizations over the course of their long careers.
That sounds awesome. Can we dive deeper into the Nonprofit Board Fellows Network? What exactly is a Board Fellows program, and how did Golub Capital get involved in that?
Yeah, so a nonprofit board fellows program, it's a program that pairs MBA students with local nonprofit partners. And it does this through a combination of classroom education and hands-on experiential learning. The exact format of board fellows programs differs a bit from school to school, but the main idea is students learn about how nonprofits work, they serve as non-voting board members, and they deliver a pro bono strategic consulting project that's aligned with both the student skills and the nonprofit's needs. how do we get involved in this work? So we first got involved in partnership with the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. In 2021, we established the Golub Capital Social Impact Lab at Kellogg. And the view behind this lab was to build on the success of Kellogg's longstanding Board Fellows program. We still think that Kellogg has something really special there, and we were interested in building on this foundation, both to expand the impact of Kellogg's program and to explore the potential to apply insights from their program at a larger scale. We've talked about nonprofit board fellows network so far. I do want to give shout outs to the two other Golub Capital Social Impact Labs, if I may. They're doing amazing work. Each of these labs is a center of excellence that brings together research and consulting and teaching in a focus area that touches on issues that cut across the nonprofit ecosystem. So Kellogg, which I've talked about, focuses on nonprofit boards. The Golub Capital Social Impact Lab at Stanford focuses on helping nonprofits develop and apply cutting-edge digital tools. The Golub Capital Social Impact Lab at Chicago's Booth School of Business focuses on developing executive leadership teams, and they specifically focus on organizations that serve historically underserved communities in Chicago. So even though I'm talking a lot about board fellows today, I just want to say we're incredibly proud of all the faculty and the staff and postdocs and community members that have been involved in the Golub Capital Social Impact Labs more generally.
Sure. It sounds like there's a whole network of opportunities, and it's a very comprehensive program. What gives you, though, like the kind of confidence that this approach is having any impact? Is there evidence that you can show that your efforts are making a difference for these nonprofits?
So you're asking an incredibly good governance question. It's the kind of question that board fellows programs teach board members to ask. One hallmark of a really effective nonprofit board is that it has a clarity about how it defines success, and it collects metrics to assess how the organization's doing against that definition of success. So one encouraging line of evidence came out of our work with the Social Impact Lab at Kellogg. Their Board Fellows program has been running for more than 20 years. And so now they have over 1,000 alumni of that program, that Board Fellows program, who have gone out into the world. And, we thought, and our partners at Kellogg thought, what if we compared the post-MBA trajectories of Kellogg Board Fellows alumni on the one hand, and a matched sample of other Kellogg alumni who weren't part of the program. And we thought this would enable us to test the hypothesis that there was something about the Board Fellows experience that shaped how this talented cohort of MBAs engaged with nonprofits after they graduated. And that's what the Kellogg's team's research found. Board Fellows alumni were almost 1.5 times more likely to serve on a nonprofit board after graduation compared to their peers in the Kellogg MBA program. Not only were they more likely to serve, they also joined their first nonprofit board after graduation on average 3 years sooner than their peers. And when we asked alumni to rate how well prepared they felt for and how effective they felt in their nonprofit board positions, Board Fellows alumni rated themselves significantly higher, statistically significantly higher on both dimensions. So the data gives us confidence we're onto something. It's not ironclad proof. It doesn't mean we can stop measuring because we found the answer. But it's encouraging. And one of the things we're really hoping to see now that we have a network of 17 Board Fellow programs across the country is that we can all get smarter together about how to define impact and measure impact and lean more into the programs that are working and do less of the things that maybe aren't as impactful.
That's fantastic. And it definitely sounds like it must be gratifying to see it in action and, put into practice. Beyond nonprofits, can you tell us more about how the network benefits board fellows?
Yeah, so the Board Fellows program concept is really designed to be a win-win-win for three key constituencies. There's the students, the Board Fellows, as you mentioned, who participate in the program. There's the nonprofit partners that they work with, and there's the universities and business schools that run these programs. So what do I mean by win-win-win? From the Board Fellows experience for students, it's a really high impact, hands-on learning experience that gets them real world insight into how nonprofits operate, how their boards operate. It's, often one of the most well-rated programs that the universities offer for the ones who have been rating, getting student experience ratings in their program. It's very popular. often, these programs are a good opportunity to meet other civic leaders and business leaders in the community. And, these programs self-select for students who want to give back to their community, want to give back to the community where they live and study in a meaningful way. And Board Fellows is a really powerful mechanism to do that in a way that really uses their talents and what they can bring to the table by virtue of their education. And from the nonprofit partner perspective, they get a high value pro bono consulting project. We talked earlier about how many nonprofits have limited resources. One of the biggest constraints that nonprofit executive directors face is bandwidth. This is something that the Golub Capital Social Impact Lab at Chicago booth, when they work with executive leadership teams, there's constantly the sense that executive directors have too much on their plates. Board fellows can take on important projects that the organization wouldn't otherwise have bandwidth for. And they also bring a fresh perspective and fresh energy, frankly, to board and committee discussions. And we've seen many cases where this perspective that the board fellow brought was seen as so valuable, it led to the board fellow being invited to stay on the board after graduation, if they were still staying in the area after they graduated. And for business schools and universities, there's always this concept of sort of town-gown relations. And I think board fellows programs are one of the more powerful tools that business schools have at their disposal to really build bridges with the local community. As I mentioned, the students love these programs. And one of our aspirations for the Golub Capital Nonprofit Board Fellows Network is that being part of the network and offering a really high quality Board Fellows program, that might be one day something that kind of every MBA program has to do to be able to attract the kind of socially conscious, high performing students who are attracted to these programs.
That would be incredible. You're talking about kind of scaling, but how does Golub Capital expect to scale its philanthropy going forward?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're really excited to see how the network continues to evolve. One of the reasons we called our work in Kellogg and Stanford and Chicago booth a social impact lab is that there's this notion of experimentation. None of us really know exactly what's going to work, but we have a lot of great ideas. And the purpose of these labs is to create a space for each of these centers of excellence to learn and innovate and propagate what they've learned to the broader community. With respect to the Board Fellows Network, each of the named Golub Capital Board Fellows programs has its own multi-year strategy to expand and increase its impact. And we're very excited not only for each of these programs to grow, but for the potential for the network to become more effective as this lab concept plays out and the programs mature and they find new ways to collaborate with each other. One of our goals here is to really create a community of practice among the staff and the students who lead each program, so they don't have to go it alone when they have questions or run into issues. I can give you an example. In April of this year, we invited staff, faculty, students, and nonprofit partners from across the network to take part in a symposium that was hosted by our partners at Kellogg. The whole program was designed by members of the network, for members of the network, to talk about common challenges and opportunities. Over 140 people came from across the country. And your earlier question, there was a panel on how do we measure success? There was a panel on comparing notes on how AI can enhance board effectiveness. There was a showcase of projects that the Golub Capital Board Fellows at Kellogg were working on. There were really sort of a grassroots content program that was all about helping the members of the network become more effective and learn from each other. And kind of what was striking to me about this symposium was, from Golub Capital's perspective, all we really had to do was bring everyone together. That's something that happens all the time in academia, right? The professors of strategy go to conferences with other professors of strategy. They share working papers, they debate ideas. With the Golub Capital Nonprofit Board Fellows Network, we've created a nexus for collaboration that wouldn't have existed otherwise. And so we're looking forward to replicating the success of our inaugural symposium by making it an annual program. And we think this is just one example of how we hope to scale the impact that the network has over time.
If a school is out there, is listening and wants to improve its Board Fellows program, or a nonprofit is looking for more from its board, what guidance tips would you share from the network's experience as we wrap up today?
I think the experience we've had with the network really speaks to the power of partnership, the power of bringing people together and sharing ideas and sharing information. And it's Thanksgiving and coming up, and I think this notion of being grateful for our partners, that's something that's very core to the way Golub Capital's run its business over so many years. My hope is that the example that the members of the network are sharing with one another in bringing together these disparate business schools to collaborate in an area where there's no competition, right? Taking a great idea from Kellogg doesn't diminish the program at Booth or doesn't diminish the program at Berkeley, but it makes them all more effective. Partnering in this kind of way, if we're able to catalyze a bit more of this partnerly collaboration among business schools, among professionals who are working in similar aspects of trying to improve the nonprofit ecosystem as a whole. Our hope is that this will maybe inspire by example some really great partnership opportunities that nobody's thought of yet. And we're really thankful to all of our partners for being willing to participate in this lab, this experiment with us, and for their commitments to continue trying to make the nonprofit sector even more effective through the power of core leadership.
Sure. Well, Tim, I think that sounds excellent. And it's really inspiring to hear how, you're happy to share that kind of approach that Golub has. And again, like you said, you hit the nail on the head that in the spirit of Thanksgiving coming up, it sounds like Golub is like the perfect candidate and a great philanthropy that you have going forward there. So thank you so much for sharing all of this with us and our listeners. And that's about all the time we have. So I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Krista. It's my pleasure.
This podcast should not be copied, distributed, or reproduced in whole or in part. Neither LevFin Insights nor its affiliates makes any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of any information contained in this podcast. LevFin Insights is not providing investment, legal, accounting, or tax advice. LevFin Insights is not providing research or making any recommendations, nor is LevFin Insights offering or soliciting any transaction with respect to the purchase or sale of any security that the listener may hold.